this would be funny if it wasn't so tragic. You know what I'm talking about. You know, chums, wherever we turn, every single day you open up, don't you? And you get up, have your cup of tea, have your cup of coffee, and find out that something else that you are paying heavily for already is now going up. And suddenly there's nothing you can do about it. It doesn't matter because it's going up, and either you pay up or you get threatened. You know the sort of thing I mean. I mentioned it a couple of days ago about the water companies and how they're trying to collate all of the the information from you. You fill it in, but apparently by doing this you are a priority customer, which is just a farce, as we all know. Now though, the BBC are literally laughing in your face by simply doing this. As ever, let me explain. Morning, nice to see you, chums. Thank you so much for joining me, and as ever, welcome one and all. It's lovely to have your company. These things, I'm glad you enjoy these stories as much as I do rooting them out for you, because they do anger me. And it's just down to everything, isn't it? You know, it doesn't matter where you go. Have you noticed, even if you buy any sort of pre-packed thing now, the packet just snaps into pieces, the plastic's that thin, everything is cheaper, but you're paying more, you know? I think I've mentioned this before here on the show, that I've said whoever now comes up with a design to make these things still look value for money really should get some kind of Oscar, because when you get in there, they're smaller, they've packaged it, they've put a box in there, anything so that you get ripped off. Eventually though, many of these companies will go bust. Some might say the same could be said of this particular company, the BBC, Dyer, right? Now the license fee is going up once again, and what's interesting here is if you turn up illegally into the United Kingdom, or indeed you're on vast amounts of universal credit, which many of them now are, you get this license fee if you've turned up illegally. Check that out, right? You still don't pay for it, right? But you, the hard-working person over here in the United Kingdom, you've got to pay for the privilege of watching what? Because there's nothing that you really want to watch. But the inflated salaries of the BBC stars, let's not forget that they never recruited back the £200,000 they gave Hugh Edwards. So weak was the boss of the BBC, Tim Davie. No, he couldn't do it. But you see, they do pay for, well, bad reward, as it were. Over on the satirical comedy show, and I use that term loosely, chums, Have I Got News for You this week, they decided first and foremost to have it hosted by a man who waved a lot of flags for the current British Prime Minister, the alleged comedian Jason Manford, right? So he's the week's guest host. And just to give you an idea, the host picks up around about £15,000. Oh yes, right, £15,000 just to be the host. It gets worse though, because on the panel was another person with a disgraceful background, so much so that she was fired from the government that we have now, headed up by the Right Honourable Sir Keir Starmer. Remember this flame-haired person, Louise Hay. She was the Transport Minister or Secretary for a nanosecond, and then, well, how can we put this nicely? A former sort of charge for fraud came to light, and suddenly our Keir, as Angela Rayner famously said, well, they had to get shot of her. So she's popping up on the panel, and that fee could be anywhere from £3,000 to £8,000. And yet the BBC keep telling you they've got to save money. Now, when you look at the ratings of something like Have I Got News for You, it's dire. But they say, oh, no, people watch it on catch up. No, they don't, right? That's another fallacy and another lie. So they make money via clips. They can't really sell this show around the world because British politics doesn't translate, and half the panel have no idea who these people are. The main panellists, Ian Hislop and the alleged comedian Paul Merton, have been there now over 25 years. The show's been running. Fascinating to think. But it goes back to what I said at the start of this video. If you think about, well, is your BBC TV licence fee worth its money? Remember, you have a former transport minister hounded out of the government, the current government, for disgraceful behaviour, for fraud. And yet the BBC, alongside things like, do not forget what happened at this year's Glastonbury, remember that shambles, nobody's been held accountable for that, nobody's been fired for it, but yet somebody like Louise, yes, up for fraud, welcomed by the BBC. Let's give you thousands of pounds. Unless, of course, I'm mistaken, Louise, maybe you've donated this to some charitable cause. Do get in touch if that's the case. Neil Sean in the very heart of Kensington.